He saw her, not the boy he had believed her to be for 4 long months, not the quiet, unassuming servant who brought his correspondence each morning with eyes cast respectfully toward the floor, not the slight-framed lad he had dismissed 100 times without a second glance. No. Standing in the downpour of that merciless November night, her linen shirt soaked through, her cropped dark hair flattened against her brow, her every carefully constructed pretense stripped away by the pitiless rain, he saw her, a woman, young, breathless, and utterly, devastatingly revealed. And the Duke of Ashvale did not look away. Before we journey further into this tale of secrets, scandal, and a love neither of them dared to name, if you are new to this channel, welcome, truly and warmly, to the Duke's Lost Letters. We tell the stories that history whispered and society tried desperately to forget. If this world of candle-lit manners, stolen glances, and hearts laid bare calls to you, then please take a moment now. Like this story, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment below telling me which character you already feel most drawn to. Your support is not merely appreciated, it is the very ink with which these stories are written. Every subscription keeps this candle burning. Now, let us return to the rain. Her name, the name she had given upon her arrival at Ashvale Manor in the first grey days of July, was Edmund Voss, a boy of no particular family, she had said, orphaned and seeking employment. Her references had been modest but credible, the careful forgeries of a desperate mind. She had bound her chest with strips of muslin, kept her voice low and clipped, moved through the vast, draughty corridors of the manor with the careful, measured steps of someone who understood that a single misstep would unravel everything. Her true name was Eleanor Voss, and she had not come to Ashvale Manor by accident. She had come because of a letter. A single yellowed letter she had discovered sewn into the lining of her late father's traveling coat, a coat she had not touched in the 2 years since his death. The letter bore the Ashvale seal. Her father's name was written in a hand she did not recognize, and the words contained within it suggested that her father had not died of fever, as she had been told. They suggested, with chilling composure, that someone at Ashvale Manor knew precisely what would become of him. She needed answers. She could not walk through the front doors as a gentlewoman and demand them. She had no standing, no fortune, no powerful name to wield as a shield. But a quiet servant boy could go unnoticed. A servant boy could listen at doorways, search the dusty alcoves of the library, and carry correspondence that, occasionally, in transit, might be briefly, carefully read. It had been a perfectly reasonable plan, she had told herself in the hollow of her grief. She had not, however, planned for the Duke himself. His Grace, Edmund Ashvale, and yes, she had permitted herself the private, bitter amusement at the shared Christian name, was not what the rumors of the county had prepared her for. The whispers at the village inn had painted him as cold, imperious, a man of granite countenance and iron discipline, who had returned from the continent hardened by war and loss, who ran his estate with military precision, and who tolerated neither incompetence nor sentiment. All of this was true. What the whispers had neglected to mention was that he read poetry at midnight by the library fire, that he kept a small battered sketchbook in his breast pocket and drew the faces of people he could not forget, that he had, on 3 separate occasions, dismissed the housekeeper's complaints about the injured stray cat that had taken residence in the east courtyard, and on the 3rd occasion had quietly, without a word of acknowledgement, had a proper basket and blanket placed by the garden wall. Eleanor had noticed it all. She had catalogued these contradictions with the meticulous attention of a woman trying very hard not to feel anything. She had been failing, by October, rather spectacularly. The night everything unraveled had begun with a task. A sealed dispatch had arrived for the Duke from London, marked urgent, marked private, and the usual footman had taken ill with a fearful cold. Eleanor had volunteered, pulling her coat tight around her, stepping out into the teeth of the November storm without permitting herself to hesitate. The ride had been brutal. By the time she delivered the dispatch to the Duke's solicitor in the village and turned back toward the manor, the storm had turned savage. Her horse, spooked by a crack of lightning, threw her at the edge of the Ashvale grounds. She was unhurt, barely, but soaked to her very marrow, shivering with a violence that made her teeth ache. She did not hear the approach of hooves behind her. Edmund. The Duke's voice, low, controlled, cutting through the roar of the rain with the practiced ease of a man accustomed to be heard on battlefields. She turned, and in turning, made her fatal error. The wet muslin had lost its hold, the rain had done what 4 months of careful vigilance had not, and the Duke, mounted above her, his dark coat streaming, his grey eyes sharp as flint, saw her, a woman, young, breathless, and utterly, devastatingly revealed. And the Duke of Ashvale did not look away.
She watched his face. She watched the moment of confusion, the slight furrow of his brow. She watched his gaze travel with terrible quiet deliberateness and return to her face. She watched comprehension settle over his features like a stone dropping into still water. He did not speak for a very long time. "Get up on the horse," he said at last, his voice utterly unreadable. "You will perish out here." "Your Grace?" "Not now." The words were not unkind. They were in fact something she could not yet name. "We will speak inside. Now come." And here, dear listener, as we pause in this extraordinary moment, if you have not yet subscribed to the Duke's Lost Letters, I ask you once more to do so now. We are only at the beginning of what is to come between Eleanor and the Duke, and I promise you, the revelations ahead are more than worth your loyalty. Hit that subscribe button. You will not wish to miss a single word. They did not speak on the ride back to the manor. The silence between them was a living thing, dense with everything unsaid. She sat before him on the horse, acutely, agonizingly aware of his arm encircling her to hold the reins, the warmth of his chest against her back, the impossible intimacy of it, the impropriety that screamed from every corner of her conscience. In the manor's entrance hall, the housekeeper had been sent away with a look and no explanation. A fire was lit in the small parlour off the main corridor. Dry clothes, her own things, the woman's clothes she had hidden in the servants' quarters, were retrieved by the Duke himself, wordlessly, which told Eleanor that he had, somehow, at some point, known precisely where to look. When she emerged, dressed as herself for the first time in 4 months, she felt simultaneously exposed and, traitorously, entirely free. He was standing before the fire. He turned when she entered, and his expression was still that unreadable, controlled thing, until it wasn't, until something in it shifted, fractured, and became something she had no Regency vocabulary adequate to describe. "Eleanor Voss," he said quietly, "your father's name was James Voss." She went very still. The Duke continued, his voice low and with an edge of something raw beneath the composure. "I have been looking for the daughter of James Voss for 2 years. I have a letter that was meant to reach you before he died. I failed him. I failed to get it to you in time." The room seemed to tilt. "I came here," she whispered, "because I believed someone here destroyed him." "Someone did." His jaw tightened. "And I have spent 2 years trying to prove it, because your father was the only man in my acquaintance who told me the truth when I needed it most, and I owed him everything." He paused. "I owe you the truth, every word of it, and I intend to give it to you if you will permit me." Eleanor Voss, who had held herself together through grief and deception and 4 months of extraordinary loneliness, felt the terrible, merciful dissolution of the last of her composure. She sat down. "Tell me," she said, "tell me everything." And the Duke of Ashvale, who had read poetry alone at midnight and sketched the faces of the lost and quietly left a blanket for a stray cat, pulled a chair to face her and began, at last, to speak the truth. Outside, the rain fell on. Inside, in the warmth and trembling candlelight, 2 people who had been looking for the same thing in the dark stumbled, finally, into the light of one another. And that, dearest listener, is where their real story begins. If Eleanor and the Duke have taken hold of your heart as they have taken hold of mine, please subscribe to the Duke's Lost Letters right now. Click that bell, leave me a comment, share this story with someone who loves a tale of courage, secrets, and the most inconvenient love imaginable. I will be here with more letters, more secrets, and more stories that time forgot. Until next time, the Duke is waiting.